Greetings and welcome to F major added second chord. It's me, Miles, and this is the Stupid Podcast. It's summer now. I could finally whip out our summer colors here at Podcast. What am I doing? Well, right now, I am learning Spanish. I mean, I already knew Spanish to some extent. When I was very young, I went to a Spanish immersion school. That was my first, obviously there was preschool, but the kindergarten to the beginning of 4th grade, that was it. Spanish immersion. So I could say with some confidence for some time, even after I left that school, I could speak Spanish. But now, see, I'm learning Spanish. I'm sitting down and I'm saying, okay, I need to figure out how to conjugate these verbs. I need to figure out what how the syntax works. I need to figure out which copula goes where, because it turns out that Romance languages have 2 copulas these days. It's great. And I'm astounded by how much I didn't know. Like, in the indicative, Spanish has I got 5 tenses. I knew one of them. I knew the present. And also I could form perfect constructions, but that was it. Couldn't form the future or the conditional or the imperfect or the preterite. And I didn't even know the subjunctive existed. And there are other examples of this sort of thing. I didn't realize that ser and estar were 2 different words. I didn't realize that. I just sort of knew this, like, yeah, that's to be. And I would use them almost interchangeably. And people would tell me, oh, it's not soy finito, it's estoy finito. But I wouldn't understand the difference. You know, I would go back to using the wrong one. The difference, incidentally, is that soy finito infers a permanent state of being finished. Estoy finito is temporary. Like, estoy finito, I've finished this task. Soy finito, I'm dead. I'm done. There's nothing more for me in this life. That's not a subtlety that I really understood when I was in the 2nd grade. But now, I can look at these things and it's like, okay, I can distinguish these things now. I can see all these different tenses and they all mean different things. I'm surprised by what I did know. Like, Spanish has 3 different ways of referring to the second person singular. 3 different ways for the second person. There's tú, there's vos, and there's usted. And depending on what part of the world you're in, and depending on who you're talking to, there are different levels of formality and intelligibility. Like, vos is not understood in Spain. And I think usted, which is from Spain, is not understood in, I think, Argentina. I didn't really know this. I was like, okay. But when I was teaching myself the verb forms that correspond, I was like, I've been using the right verb form for usted this whole time without realizing that I was doing it. I had a very intuitive grasp of Spanish. I had a pretty good idea of the syntax. I knew a lot of vocabulary as a matter of course, and the theoretical grammar I just didn't know. But I didn't really need it for the thoughts I was expressing in Spanish at the time. Why would I need the conditional? I was 7. But now that I can, appreciate these things, I do. Now that I have complicated thoughts to express, I can find the means to express these complicated thoughts, as opposed to just asking if I could go to the bathroom. That's one thing about Spanish immersion school. You say, can I go to the bathroom in Spanish? And they never say, do you mean, may I go to the bathroom? Because that's not really there's probably that distinction in Spanish somewhere, but it's not at all useful. They don't have, the time or the energy to waste your time with the may I, can I sort of thing. That was pleasant while it lasted. Of course, then when I left school, I went the habit of not leaving class in the middle to go to the bathroom, just finding opportunities between classes. But that's far too much information, and also neither here nor there. This is sort of important. Part of the reason that this whole learning Spanish thing is something I can do is because I know Latin. One of the schools I went to after, I learned Latin for 4 years. So I look at something like, the first conjugation imperfect, and it's like, yes, this is something I understand. This is something I can learn very quickly because I know what this construction is like in the language that became this language. Of course, in the second and third conjugations, the imperfect is completely different from the Latin, which is frustrating. And also the future tense is more regular in Spanish than it is in Latin, it unsettles my sensitive, delicate sensibilities, the weakness of my constitution. But it's really cool. It's really cool to be able to even derive some degree of understanding between different related fields of study. In theory, obviously I have some additional basis for Spanish, but if I wanted to, I could go and learn Romanian now. Once I'm done with the Spanish, of course. I could go and learn Italian or French. Portuguese is basically mutually intelligible with Spanish anyway, at least in written form. It's a weird and empowering feeling to have, this sort of cheat code that I can just get into other languages with. It's very fun. I'm having a good time with it. By the end of the summer, I should be able to, at the very least by the end of the summer, I should be able to read La Jornada Latina with some degree of confidence. I can almost do it already. I just need to brush up again on my tables and then learn my vocabulary. There's a lot of vocabulary that I just don't remember. In this phase of learning Spanish, the first word that I looked up how to say was word, just so that I could say, I don't have a lot of words. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why that's a thing I thought was necessary. Because I already knew how to say I don't speak Spanish good. Or even I don't speak good Spanish. I could already do that, so I don't know why I went through that trouble. Probably because it seemed to me at the time that word is a very good word to know in any language. It seems appropriate. It's like walking into a steakhouse and ordering a steak. It's like, yeah, that's like the baseline level of, appropriateness here. Anyway, I'm having a really good time with this learning Spanish thing. I'm not going to conduct an entire episode of podcast in the future in Spanish. I might. It's a dangerous idea, but all of a sudden it's enticing. Maybe I'll record a bonus episode. But for the time being, I will continue to keep these two wonderful pursuits of mine separate. Until next week, then, have a nice week, and hasta luego.